You know, when you've been a cop long enough, you start to understand pain. You learn to compartmentalize it. Put it in a box, shove it down, move on. But nothing can prepare you for that kind of pain. That morning felt like any other. It was spring in California, birds chirping, that soft breeze through the palm trees, sun coming in through the kitchen window. I kissed her on the forehead, told her not to wait up, and left for the precinct. Routine. Just another day. I didn't know it'd be the day everything would change. By mid-morning, we got a call, armed robbery at a liquor store on 18th and Alameda. I was the closest unit. I didn't think twice. Lights on. Sirens blazing. I radioed in, and my partner Jason backed me up 2 minutes later. There were 3 of them. 2 inside, 1 in the getaway car. I ducked behind the patrol vehicle, waited for backup, but one of them panicked. Started shooting before we could even set a perimeter. I heard the crack of a round leave the chamber before I even saw the muzzle flash. It caught me high, right shoulder. Felt like fire tearing through my skin. I dropped behind the hood and returned fire with my left hand, tried to stay sharp, tried to breathe through it. I've been hit before. Minor stuff. But this one, it dropped me to my knees. Next thing I knew, Jason was dragging me behind the cruiser, shouting into the radio for medics. They loaded me into the ambulance. Everything was a blur, sirens, pressure on the wound, the taste of copper in my mouth. But through all of it, one thing kept buzzing in my mind, her. I pulled out my phone with my one good hand and called her. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. Again. Again. I told myself maybe she was out. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she was in the shower. But something didn't sit right. My gut twisted. I've learned to trust that feeling, it saved my life more than once. I told the paramedics to stop. Told them I wasn't going to the hospital. They freaked, said I was going into shock. I didn't care. I needed to get home. It wasn't logic. It wasn't protocol. It was instinct. And fear. Not fear of dying. Fear that something was happening to her, something bad. I got out a block before our apartment. Shoulder throbbing, shirt soaked in blood, adrenaline still pulsing through my veins. I stumbled to our front door, keys shaking in my hand. I opened it. And froze. She was there. In the bedroom. With him. I didn't even recognize the guy at first. Just another face, another shadow in a place that was supposed to be safe. Then it hit me, Tyler. Her best friend. He scrambled for his clothes like a scared teenager. She wrapped the blanket around herself, eyes wide, mouth open, but no words came out. Everything went silent. I wasn't even looking at them. I was staring at the nightstand. At the photo of us at Lake Tahoe last summer. At the sunflower she dried and kept pressed in a book. At everything that meant something, now meaning nothing. She stepped toward me. I flinched. Not from the pain in my shoulder. From the pain in my chest. William, she whispered. You're hurt. Hurt? I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. I looked her in the eyes and said one thing. Just one. I thought something happened to you. Then I turned around and walked out. My legs were barely holding me up, and I could feel the blood soaking into my belt. But I kept walking. One step after the other. Away from the life I thought I had. Away from the woman I would have died for. I didn't know where I was going. I ended up at Jason's place. He nearly dropped his coffee when he saw me at the door. Jesus, Will. What the hell happened? I need a couch, I said. He didn't ask questions, not then. He helped me clean the wound, got me to a private clinic later that night. No paperwork. No explaining. Just a friend showing up when I needed it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the pain. I've dealt with worse. It was the questions that wouldn't stop. The what-ifs. The how could she's. The why the hell did I believe we were okay. she called. Over and over. I watched the screen light up, over and over, her name glowing like a warning sign. I never picked up. How could I? She didn't pick up when it mattered. You know, I used to think the worst part of being a cop was watching good people lose everything. Watching families fall apart. But I was wrong. The worst part is when it's you. When it's your home that becomes the crime scene. When it's your heart that takes the hit. Funny thing is, the bullet wound. It's already healing. But the other one? That's gonna take a while. After everything I saw that day, you'd think I'd be ready to crash. To shut the world out and sleep for a week. But the thing about betrayal, it doesn't knock you out. It keeps you wide awake. Jason's couch was stiff. His dog wouldn't stop sniffing my bandaged shoulder. I stared at the ceiling, counting every crack in the plaster like it was gonna give me answers. But all I saw were flashbacks. Her face. Her hands on him. The blanket slipping. The silence. And the worst part, I still loved her. I hated that I did. Hated that even after seeing her with him, my first thought was still her safety. That's the part they don't tell you about heartbreak. It's not anger that kills you. It's the loyalty that won't leave. In the morning, Jason made coffee and tried not to bring it up. He'd always been good at that, giving space without making it weird. But when I noticed his eyes keep drifting to my phone lighting up again and again, I finally broke the silence. She's still calling. Jason nodded slowly. You sure you don't want to pick up? I shook my head. Not yet. You think it was just a fling? I paused. I think it was a decision. We didn't talk about it after that. I left his place before noon. I needed air. I needed something to pull me out of my own head. So I did what I always do when I don't know where else to go. I drove to the station. Everyone stared as I walked in, left arm in a sling, bruises along my jaw, pale as hell. I heard whispers. I saw the captain's door crack open, his eyes narrowing like he was about to chew me out. But I kept walking. Straight to my desk. Sat down like nothing had happened. Maybe because pretending nothing happened was easier than explaining what did. Will. It was Officer Diaz. Young kid. Eager. Good heart. He looked like he was walking on eggshells. You good, man? I gave a tired smile. Defined good. He didn't laugh. Just nodded like he understood. I spent the next hour going through incident reports, catching up on emails, keeping my mind busy. But eventually, I caved. I opened my phone and scrolled through the messages. Please call me. I'm sorry. You weren't supposed to see that. We need to talk. Please, Will. That last one stuck with me. You weren't supposed to see that. Not, I didn't mean for it to happen. Not, I made a mistake. Just, I got caught. That was enough for me to put the phone down again. Around 2 p.m., Jason walked by and dropped a folder on my desk. Got something interesting, he said. Might distract you. Yeah. Remember that liquor store shootout? The guy who drove the getaway car got away clean. But we picked up some footage this morning. Security cam from a pawn shop 3 blocks away. You're not gonna believe who was behind the wheel. I flipped open the file. Stared at the still frame. No way. You've gotta be kidding. Jason raised an eyebrow. You recognize him? Hell yeah. That's Nate Palmer. Jason whistled. Didn't know you had history. Not just history, I said. He used to date her. Back in college. Now I was fully awake. Nate Palmer wasn't just some random thug. He was a small-time crook who'd gone clean for a while. Real estate, flipped cars, even tried a bar in San Diego. Last I'd heard, he was living up north. But now he's driving for armed robbers. Something didn't add up. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I grabbed the folder and stood up. I need to look into this. Jason followed me. You think he's tied to? I didn't answer. because I didn't want to believe what I was thinking. But deep down, I couldn't ignore the timeline. Nate Palmer suddenly back in town. My girl starts acting distant 2 months ago. That weird tension in the apartment. The secrecy. And Tyler. Her best friend. He used to run with Nate back in the day. Hell, I arrested them together once in Riverside. Coincidence? Maybe. But I've been a cop too long to trust coincidences. I went to my car, pulled out my laptop, and started running Nate's name through every system we had. Nothing recent. A couple of parking tickets. One unpaid speeding violation. But nothing that tied him to a robbery crew. Still, something didn't sit right. I looked up his last known address. A condo in Echo Park. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Didn't ask for backup. I just went. When I got there, the building manager said Nate had moved out 2 weeks ago. No forwarding address. Just paid in cash and left. But he left behind a package. For you, the guy said, handing me a manila envelope. Said if someone named William ever came looking, give this to him. Now that sent a chill through me. I opened it right there in the hallway. Inside, one photo. Of me. And her. Taken from a distance. Looks like it was outside our building. A parking lot. Grainy, but unmistakable. And a sticky note on the back. You should have kept her close. Some things don't belong to cops. My blood ran cold. What the hell was this? A threat? A warning? I raced back to my car and slammed the door shut. My shoulder screamed in pain, but I didn't care. Was she in danger? Or worse, was she part of this? I didn't want to believe it. But that photo, the note, the silence in her voice when I walked in that day. It all started to blur. I was staring out the windshield when my phone rang. It was her. Again. And for the first time since the shooting, I answered. Her voice cracked the second I picked up. Will, thank God. I've been going crazy. I didn't know if you were okay. Please, let me explain. I got a photo today, I said, my voice low. Of us. From your parking lot. Nate Palmer left it for me. You want to tell me why he's back in town? And why he's following us? Silence. Then. I didn't know he was here, she whispered. I swear, Will. I haven't talked to him in years. I waited. And then she said something that changed everything. But Tyler. Tyler knew. He's been meeting with him. I think they're planning something. I didn't know what to do. That's why Tyler's been around so much. He told me if I said anything, he'd hurt you. My heart stopped. You mean you knew something was going on? Tears in her voice. I wanted to protect you. I just didn't know how. Now it all made sense. The lies. The distance. The timing. I had more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. You ever get that feeling where your gut screams at you, louder than the sirens, louder than the gunshots? That's what it felt like the moment she said Tyler had been meeting with Nate. I wasn't just betrayed. I was being played. I ended the call without saying goodbye. I didn't trust myself to keep calm. Not anymore. I sat in the car, trying to breathe, while everything she'd said replayed in my head on a loop. Tyler. Nate, threats, her silence, all of it stacking up like dominoes. And suddenly, I realized. This wasn't just about cheating. This was something bigger. And whatever it was, it had my name written on it. I didn't go back to the precinct. I went to the one place I knew Tyler couldn't resist returning to, Rusty's garage. A rundown, half-legal car shop off Alameda, where he and Nate used to hang before I cuffed them years ago. I parked across the street, engine off, lights down. And I waited. Hours passed. Nothing. I was about to give up when an old gray Chevy pulled in. Beaten up body, tinted windows, no plates. A man stepped out, tall, hoodie up, head low. But I knew that walk. Tyler. He stepped inside through the back. Not through the front like a customer. Like someone who belonged. I got out, locked the car, and crossed the street slow. I had no backup. No badge. Just a bruised shoulder, a bad feeling, and a whole lot of questions. I slipped in through the side door, quiet, letting the shadows cover me. Voices. Muffled, but close. I moved toward the back, past rows of stripped-down cars, tools scattered everywhere, the smell of oil heavy in the air. Finally, I saw them, through a crack in the office door. Tyler. And Nate. Talking low, serious. "You sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Nate said, his voice sharp. Tyler laughed. "He's a cop, Nate. He always suspects something. But he doesn't know the plan. He still thinks I just slept with her." "Good," Nate said. "Because once this is over, he's going to wish that was all it was." I froze. Plan. Over. I leaned closer, trying to make sense of it. Tyler lit a cigarette. "I've got access to her apartment, the building layout, garage codes, everything. We hit the storage unit Friday night. Her name's on the lease, and he won't be there. He's off duty till Monday." Storage unit. What the hell were they talking about? Nate smirked. "And the jewels? You're sure they're in there?" "Her uncle left them to her," Tyler said. "She doesn't even know how much they're worth. Thought it was just junk when she showed me." My jaw tightened. They weren't just cheating on me. They were using her. Planning a robbery under her nose. Using me as cover. That's when my foot slipped. Just a scrape, barely audible, but enough. Both of them turned. "Who's there?" Nate shouted. I bolted. Slammed the door open, ran through the rows of cars, heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I heard footsteps behind me, fast. Angry. I made it to the door, burst out into the alley, dove behind a dumpster. Silence. Then a voice. Low. Mocking. "Will, you just don't know when to quit." Nate. I stayed crouched, hand on my holster, empty. I cursed under my breath. I wasn't carrying. Not tonight. "You should have stayed in that hospital bed," Nate continued. "Would have saved you from what's coming." Footsteps retreated. They didn't find me. I waited 10 minutes before I moved again. Got in my car and drove straight to the one person who could help me without asking questions. Detective Carla Navarro. Carla opened her apartment door with a half-suspicious, half-concerned look. "Jesus, Will. You look like you've been hit by a train." "Not yet," I said. "But it's coming." She let me in. Carla had been my partner years ago, back before the department split us. Smart, sharp, trusted her instincts more than anyone I knew. She poured us both coffee without asking. I told her everything. From the shooting. To the apartment. To the garage. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back and crossed her arms. "Let me get this straight. You were shot. Ignored medical orders. Found your girl with her friend. And now you're telling me they're planning to rob her own storage unit using a map she unknowingly gave them." I nodded. "You missed the part where they're working with Nate Palmer." Carla blew out a breath. "Damn, Will. You really know how to pick them." "Yeah, well," I muttered, "my taste in women was never the issue. My loyalty was." She looked at me, softer now. "What do you need?" "Proof. And time." Carla got up, went to her office, and came back with a tablet. "We've had eyes on Palmer for weeks," she said. "We suspected he was back in LA for something big, but couldn't nail him to anything solid. If you're right, this storage unit hit, it's our shot." She opened the file. "Here. Surveillance photos. Wiretap transcripts. A location ping. Bingo." Tyler's burner phone had been in and out of that storage facility 3 times in the last week. I sat back. "We've got him." But Carla wasn't smiling. "You sure she's not involved?" I hesitated. "No, I said finally. But I want to believe she's not. That she's just a pawn in their game. And if she isn't, then I'll deal with that too. The plan was simple. We'd set up surveillance Friday night. Catch them in the act. Take them down clean. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Because I still hadn't spoken to her face to face. And if I was going to get closure, real closure, I needed to hear the truth from her lips. So the next day, I went back to the apartment. She opened the door slowly, eyes wide, tired, red. "Will." I stepped in. "We need to talk." She nodded, moved aside. The place hadn't changed, but everything felt different. Colder. Like the warmth we once had been scrubbed out, leaving behind only dust and shadows. She sat on the couch. I stood. "Did you know about the storage unit?" She blinked. "What?" "Tyler and Nate. They're planning to rob you. Friday. They're using your garage codes. Your name. They think you've got something valuable in that storage locker." Her face drained of color. "Oh my God. The chest. My uncle's chest. I showed Tyler once, but I didn't think." "Exactly. You didn't think. But they did." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know, Will. I swear. I thought Tyler was just trying to get close to me. I didn't even want it to happen. I was lonely. You were always gone. I was doing my job," I snapped. "Protecting the city. Protecting you. I know. I know." She buried her face in her hands. I wanted to scream. Cry. Break something. But instead, I just sat. "Look," I said, "calmer now. We're gonna catch them. I'm working with Carla. But you have to stay quiet. Stay out of it." She nodded. "Whatever you need." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Fear. Regret. Maybe even love. But it didn't matter anymore. We weren't us. Friday night was coming fast. And with it, answers. Or consequences. I was ready for both. Friday night came with a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. The city didn't sleep, but it held its breath. Like it knew something was about to shift. Carla and I waited in the surveillance van parked a block away from the storage facility. It was cold for a spring night in California, the kind of cold that finds its way past your skin and into your ribs. Or maybe that was just nerves. Inside the van, monitors flickered to life, tracking every motion inside the building. Security cams. Motion sensors. Audio mics. The whole place was wired. Tyler and Nate had no idea. "They're late," Carla muttered, checking her watch. "They'll come," I said, staring at the grainy feed. Tyler always liked a dramatic entrance. As if on cue, headlights cut through the alley. A black van pulled up to the gate. Two silhouettes stepped out, hoodies, gloves, masks. Showtime. We watched them pick the lock like pros. Once inside, they moved fast, knew exactly where to go. Tyler pulled a flashlight, Nate carried the tools. They reached Unit 32B, the one registered to her name. I held my breath. Tyler crouched, undid the padlock, lifted the shutter. The chest sat in the middle, old, dark wood, brass hinges. Her uncle's. She never even knew what was inside. Nate cracked it open. For a second, even through the low-res feed, I saw their faces light up. Gold. Stones. Documents. Real. "Now," I said into my mic. Within seconds, the lights burst on. Red and blue. Screams. LAPD. Hands where we can see M. Tyler ran. Of course he did. Nate froze, dropped everything, tried to blend into the shadows, but it was too late. The trap had been sprung. I left the van and walked toward the chaos. I needed to see it myself. Carla cuffed Nate. Tyler had been tackled by two uniforms near the exit. I stood over him as they brought him to his feet. He looked at me through blood on his lip and fury in his eyes. "You think this changes anything?" he hissed. "No," I said. "But it ends it." The paperwork took hours. Statements, evidence logs, Miranda forms. By sunrise, both Tyler and Nate were in holding. The stolen contents of the chest had been cataloged, appraised at nearly $2.6 million. Most of it traced back to a long-forgotten estate dispute in Arizona. Her uncle had never claimed it legally, but he'd stored it, quietly, until his death. She had inherited it, unknowingly, with no clue of its worth. They used her as a pawn in a heist she never signed up for. And nearly got away with it. I went to see her that morning. She stood by the window, wrapped in a blanket, eyes puffy, calm. I told her everything. The raid. The arrest. The truth. She listened without interruption. When I finished, she asked softly, "So, it's over?" "Yeah," I said. "It is." She sat down on the couch, that same spot where everything had fallen apart days ago. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. I didn't know how lost I was until I saw what I was about to lose. I nodded slowly. "I get it," I said. "I wasn't there when I should have been. I thought being a cop meant always putting the job first. Turns out, I was wrong." We sat in silence. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. "So," she said after a while, "what happens now?" I looked at her. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was just free. "I think," I said, "we both need to find out who we are again. Separately." She smiled faintly, and it broke something soft in me. "I think you're right," she said. "The department gave me a few weeks off, standard post-op leave after a shooting. But I used the time for more than rest. I visited my parents in San Diego. Had long talks with Carla about how close we'd come to losing our grip on things. And one evening, I stood by the ocean, letting the Pacific wind slam into me like some kind of baptism. Everything that had happened, the shooting, the betrayal, the truth, it had stripped me raw. But sometimes, that's what healing needs. Not a bandage. But air. 3 weeks later, I got a letter. From her. Short. Honest. She'd moved. Started therapy. Was working on forgiving herself. She thanked me. Said she hoped one day we'd cross paths again, not as exes, not as victims, but as people who once meant something to each other. I sat with that letter for a long time. And then I smiled. Because maybe that was the real win. Not catching the bad guys. Not the closure. But knowing we'd both survived the wreckage. Life's funny like that. One moment, you're bleeding on a sidewalk in downtown LA. The next, you're drinking coffee by the sea, wondering what comes next. For me. Maybe I'll take the detective exam. Maybe I'll teach at the academy. Maybe I'll finally take that trip to Oregon I always put off. But one thing I know for sure. I'll never ignore my instincts again. Not with a case. Not with people. Not with love. Because the hardest part of betrayal isn't what someone does to you. It's realizing you saw the signs. And looked away. But spring always comes, even after the storm. And this time, I'm ready for it.